Welcome back to the MM Sports Pod. Today we are going to be talking about the other two matchups we didn't get into in the last pod, that being Texas at Clemson and then Tennessee going to Ohio State, a couple of marquee college football playoff matchups. I'm joined as always by my man Max. Max, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. We got a first round of the playoffs here, the first 12-team playoff coming up on Saturday. Looking forward to finally seeing those games.
Yep, I just got back from college, so the setup's a little different. I'm in the AirPods instead of the microphone, and the lighting's not as good. Oh well, we'll get over it. We're making it happen. We're talking college football, always exciting stuff. Let's start with Clemson at Texas. Texas is an 11 and a half point favorite, and the over under on this one is going to be 51 and a half. Clemson coming off a win against SMU in the ACC title game, and Texas is coming off that loss to Georgia. It's going to be in Texas. Austin will be loud. It'll be packed. You look at it, what got us here? Well, Texas 0-2 against ranked teams. Both of those losses being to Georgia. Didn't have any other ranked teams on the schedule. Clemson is 1-2 against ranked teams. They beat SMU last week, like we talked about. They got blown out by Georgia week 1, and then South Carolina they lost to in the last week of the season by 3 points at the very end. Their third loss is going to be to Louisville, who's like ranked team approximate. You know, they're almost there. I think they're 8-4, probably around the number 30 team if they got ranked that far out. So one common opponent. Both of them lost to Georgia. Clemson, it was week 1, but they got absolutely torched. Texas played a couple of solid games with them. What's something that stands out to you in this matchup?
Yeah, I think the main matchup here is going to be Cade Klubnik versus Quinn Ewers. We've been talking a fair amount how we just don't view Quinn Ewers as a big game quarterback. He can lead the Texas offense efficiently. The Texas offense has been solid this season. They're 24th in points per game, putting up about 34, and they're 15th in yards per game, putting up about 450 yards per game. So it's a very solid, effective offense. That being said, it's kind of come against the weaker side of the SEC. So how much stock do you put into that when they went up against their big matchup against Georgia? That offense pretty much got shut down both times. So flip side of the ball, when it comes to Clemson, they also have had an effective offense for pretty much the entirety of the season here. Cade Klubnik has been efficient, man. He's has the lowest interception rate in the country, and they're putting up about similar 34 points per game and 450 yards per game. So statistically, these offenses are extremely similar. One in the ACC, so you don't know how much to trust that, and one against the lower end of the SEC, so you don't know how much to trust that. So, but truthfully, I do think the matchup comes between the quarterbacks, Quinn Ewers versus Cade Klubnik. If Cade Klubnik can outperform Quinn Ewers by a wide margin, then I think Clemson has a chance in this game.
You look at it, the offense is statistically pretty similar. Maybe you want to ride with the star power of Texas and their ability to go make plays on the outside with their wide receivers like Isaiah Bond. But you look at the defenses if you want to go there because the offenses look pretty similar. Well, there's a very stark difference in defenses. Texas is a no doubt top 5 defense in the country. Clemson is nothing special defensively. So you look at Texas, they gave up 12 and a half points per game, number 2 in the country, 250 yards per game, again, number 2 in the country. They're the 6th best on third down, the 3rd best in the red zone. They're number 1 against the pass. They intercept the ball the 3rd most in the country, and they get the 10th most sacks in the country. Like, they get after it defensively. You look at that conversely for Clemson, and all their defensive statistics are anywhere from like 30th to 70th. They're all kind of middle of the pack, especially for a team that we're considering the number 12 team in the country against the relatively weak ACC schedule. So you look at that, clear advantage Texas here. So I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, okay, how can Clemson's offense get down the field against a very, very effective Texas defense? Well, to me, their best way is going to have to be to dink and dunk their way down the field. Like you said, Cade Klubnik doesn't throw picks. Very good job taking care of the ball. So Clemson, the problem, 63% pass completion. That's not bad, but it's number 48 in the country. And that's where Texas's defense is the worst. They allow 59% completion percentage, which is 46th in the country. So that's the one spot I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, Texas's defense is kind of, I guess, like not a weakness, but not a super strength. But Clemson doesn't look like they have an offense that can maybe take advantage of that, other than the fact that Cade Klubnik's going to be able to take care of the ball.
Yeah, it's a big mismatch. Texas's defense is quite a bit better, in my opinion, than Clemson's offense. So if you're Clemson, you really have to rely on who's kind of been an okay quarterback for the entirety of his Clemson career. He's had a great, a solid season. You really need that guy to have a hell of a game this upcoming Saturday. So if they're able to do that and limit this Texas offense, maybe they have a chance. But Texas is just way too talented on both sides of the ball. I like Texas big in this one.
Yeah, I think Texas is going to take care of business, but if you look, what are other areas I can look to see Clemson win here, on like maybe defensively or on the margins or something like that? Well, Texas, number 106 in terms of red zone scoring percentage. So can you limit them to field goals? We saw it against Georgia, right? That's the blueprint. You let them run up 250, 300 yards of offense and give up 6 points in the half. You can run for 700 yards. If you got 6 points at the half, I don't really care, right? So if you can limit them in the red zone, that's going to be huge. Also, forcing turnovers. We've seen Quinn Ewers be kind of turnover prone. Good news for Clemson. That's where they excel. They're the number 3 team in terms of turnover margin. They're plus 1.3 turnovers per game. Number 3 in the country, like I said. They average 2 takeaways per game. That's number 11 in the country. So if they can force Quinn Ewers to have to drop back and throw on 3rd and 8 a lot of times, maybe they can get something going there. Like we saw last week, they have a quality special teams. They had 2 big special teams plays against SMU last week that kind of set them up. So if Clemson is going to be able to do this, they're going to have to win on the margins. They're going to have to win on, splashy plays, right? Win in the red zone. Don't give up touchdowns. Win in the kicking game. Win on special teams. Win on the turnover margin. That's where they're going to be able to win this game, because I think if you just look at offense, defense, it very clearly tilts Texas.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. That's one way Clemson can win. The only other way I see is that Quinn Ewers turns into a pumpkin for a big game. So we've seen it multiple times. Maybe he does it again. I don't think the first round of playoffs is a big enough of a game for Quinn Ewers to not be solid. So yeah, like you said, Clemson's going to have to find a way to put up points on this Texas defense, and I just don't really see it happening. Texas's defense is just too good. So I like Texas to cover, and I like the under on this game as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under. I do like that. I like Clemson to cover 11.5. I actually have Texas winning this one 24-20, kind of a backdoor cover from Clemson. I think they probably score a touchdown late, kind of make it more interesting than the game actually was. Like I said, I just think their defense is going to be able to force a turnover. Their special teams will make a play or something that'll kind of keep them in the game and keep them around, and maybe we see the lack of eliteness from Texas's offense kind of be a problem. Now let's move on to Tennessee at Ohio State. I mean, it's the 8 versus 9, so obviously, you'd think it'd be the closest matchup, but I think it's also, it's arguably 2 of the 3 best teams that are playing in the first round, however you want to view it. Ohio State, a lot of people are pretty high on them. Tennessee, they're a very quality team. They're better than the 8th and 9th team in the country, certainly. So, great matchup at Ohio State. Last thing we saw from Ohio State was losing to Michigan at home. So, big game for them. What are you expecting to see here?
I'm excited for this one, man. This is a unique matchup here. Both teams have just had damn good seasons, man. They're both 10-2. They have some impressive wins on their resume with, some disappointing losses as well. I view these teams very similar as far as their story, up until this point in the season. As far as key points of this game, what matchups are we looking at? Tennessee rushing the ball. They are one of the best in the country. They're top 10 in the country right now. They're rushing it like crazy. It's led by Dylan Sampson. He's got almost 1,500 rushing yards, almost 6 yards a carry, and 22 touchdowns. So, man, that guy is an effective running back. And flip side of the ball here, it's Ohio State. They're only allowing just under 3 yards a carry, which is top 5 in the country. So that's a huge matchup, man. Tennessee relies on the run. They run almost 60% of the time. If they can't establish the run, Ohio State's going to be able to handle this game very easily. So it's a strength versus a strength here in this matchup. And if you're Tennessee, especially going to Ohio State, the run game has to be, business as usual. They have to continue to put up almost 6 yards a carry and rely on it for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, so two top five defenses, right? Both defenses are absolutely phenomenal. Ohio State is the number one scoring defense in the country. They're really, really good. To me, I look at this and I go, can Tennessee replicate the Michigan plan? Can they do the same thing that Michigan did? Well, they have a dominant defensive line. They certainly do. They give up 2.9 yards per carry, like you said. Very good there. Can they control the line of scrimmage offensively? I think that's the thing I'm most interested to see, because Tennessee has that spread offense where they like to get 4 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers and a tight end and go way out wide and say, okay, you're going to have to take your corners and go way, way outside, and we'll make your linebacker go one-on-one with their running back and see if they can make an open field tackle. And if they can't, since everyone's spread out so wide, you can really absolutely gas people. So Ohio State hasn't necessarily seen an offense like that. I think the closest thing they probably saw was Oregon, but even that is very different. They still usually keep 1 or 2 tight ends on the line of scrimmage and really hammer it in the A gap when they are running like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that's going to be your key to the game, is Tennessee's O-line versus Ohio State's D-line.
Yeah, and that's for Tennessee to keep it close, in my opinion, because this Ohio State offense is pretty damn electric. They arguably have the best wide receiving trio in the country with Jeremiah Smith, McKay, and Tate. They have, combined almost over 2,000 receiving yards. Smith being, the best of those, that kind of stud true freshman. He's got almost 1,000 receiving yards and almost 10 touchdowns. So that is where Ohio State will win this game, is they have one of the best passing attacks in college football. Flip side of the ball, Tennessee, not too bad of a pass defense themselves. They're top 15 in passing yards allowed per game, only allowing about 180 passing yards, only 6 yards per attempt. And the pass rush is pretty damn good. They got James Pierce Jr. He's going to be, first round pick in the draft. He can get after the passer. They're averaging 2.5 sacks per game, which is solid. It's a solid pass rush collectively that should be able to disrupt Will Howard on the occasion, right? But if you're Ohio State, your run game's solid. You still got Judkins. You still got Henderson. That it's solid, and I think you can count on that to be fairly effective. But that's not where they win on offense. They win by Will Howard dishing it to his bevy of weapons. And so that is on the flip side of the ball where the key matchups are.
Yeah, can Tennessee's defense confuse Will Howard the same way that Michigan's defense did? If Will Howard has an off day, Ohio State is going to be in trouble. I mean, we've seen it before. If he starts throwing the ball around the yard a little too loose or just can't hit his target for whatever reason, isn't recognizing coverages, whatever it may be, Ohio State can get themselves in some trouble because Tennessee's defense is good enough to really, not stop that ground game, but to be able to slow it down considerably. So that's definitely a concern when you're looking at how Michigan beat Ohio State. Can Tennessee replicate it in terms of that sense? Something that stands out to me, if you go to the red zone, Tennessee, 102nd in red zone scoring percentage in the country. That's bad. How's Ohio State's defense? They're number one. They only allow scores on 55% of red zone drives. So high levels of concern for Tennessee there. On the flip side of the coin, Ohio State's offense, nothing special, 88% red zone scoring percentage, number 41 in the country. Tennessee only allows 75%, that's number 13. So solid, but nowhere near the discrepancy that you see between Tennessee's offense and Ohio State's defense. So the thing to me is can Tennessee score those explosive plays? Because how many times have you seen that play action and, whoever it is, Hendon Hooker, Nico Iamaleava, throwing it deep and you get, a 50-yard touchdown pass. Can Tennessee break those off? I don't really think so, because Ohio State has played so much, keep everything underneath and make them dink it and dunk it all the way down the field. I think their defense is going to be disciplined enough. Like you said, they got Caleb Downs at safety. He's an absolute baller. I think they'll be able to game plan well enough to keep Tennessee's offense under control. I think Will Howard plays not phenomenal, but well enough to get it done. For that reason, I got Ohio State taking care of business on this one, 23-20.
Taking care of business is a 3-point game. That's a close game right there. I personally I like Ohio State to cover in this one. I think they're too star studded of a team. So the spread here is set at let's see, Ohio State is 7.5 point.
Seven and a half.
Yeah, and I like them to cover this one. I think they win by 10 to 14 points here in this game. I think it's too star studded of a team. I think they're more battle tested. I like Tennessee's resume. I like that they beat Alabama, but it's an offense that it just doesn't scare me that much. They really haven't shown much of a passing attack that is scary. They can hit the occasional splash deep shot. And other than that, they really got to rely on the run game. Well, fortunately for Ohio State, they got a hell of a defensive line and one of the best, rush defenses in the country. So given that I view Tennessee's offense as more limited and Ohio State's defense to still be just as good, I think that's a big mismatch right there that goes in Ohio State's favor. So give me Ohio State to cover the 7.5 points and give me the under on 46.5 points. Two, kind of statistically top 5 defense is here. I think that's a fair amount of points for that one. But I just think Tennessee is really going to struggle to score. So, yeah, give me Ohio State.
Yep, I'm with you on the under too as well. I got my 23-20 prediction puts it at 43. I don't envision these offenses going nuclear. Now, of course, now that I've said that, they'll go out and play a 38-35 game naturally because that's how college football works. But
I'm here for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to go watch it, but I don't mind a defensive struggle. I might be weird for that, but I kind of like watching that. It doesn't bother me. Anyways, let's move on. Let's talk full bracket predictions. Now, I just want to state we will be giving you our predictions on a game-on-game basis, and that might change. So what we tell you now might not be what we're doing, carrying it out all the way through, and we do want to give you guys a preview. Like we said, Notre Dame, Indiana. If Indiana wins, and they blow them out, maybe we're like, oh, maybe they can go beat Georgia. So that take this with a grain of salt, but it's our predictions for the entire bracket. Max, what is your bracket looking like, my man?
Yeah, so for the first round here, pretty chalk. And while, you don't love to go chalk all the time, I think Vegas kind of agrees with that. The closest matchup that we see is Notre Dame, the 7-point favorites against Indiana, right? Every single other game, the spread is even longer than that. So I'm kind of going chalk for the first round here. So I have Texas beating Arizona State, Ohio State beating Tennessee, and Penn State beating SMU, and then Notre Dame beating Indiana. That would be my first round. Heading into the second round, I have Texas beating Arizona State. I like Arizona State, but I just think Texas is quite a bit more talented there. And given that there's no home field advantage heading into the second round of the playoffs, yeah, give me Texas on that one. Then with a upset, I have Ohio State beating Oregon, which would be the first playoff game for Oregon, getting bounced pretty much immediately for them. We saw the matchup earlier. We saw Ohio State just not quite beat them in Autzen, put them on a neutral site. With Ohio State having a playoff game under their belt against a good Tennessee team, I like Ohio State to win that game. Then we'd have Penn State, Boise State, and I like Penn State in that one just simply for the fact that it's a, Power 4 team against a Group of 5 team, and I think Penn State's quite a bit more talented, should be able to limit Genty. So I like Penn State pretty easily in that one. Notre Dame, Georgia, I guess give me Georgia. That's a tough matchup for me, man. But I'm going to ride with, the team that just won the SEC championship. So give me Georgia there. So then heading back up, we got Texas and Ohio State, and I like Ohio State in that matchup. I think Quinn Ewers finally turns into the pumpkin. I think it's a big enough game. So Ohio State takes that one. Penn State, Georgia, another brutal one. I just don't trust that Penn State makes it to the national championship. That's really the only analysis I got for that one. So give me Georgia. So that gives us a Ohio State Georgia championship. And Georgia's been one of the most inconsistent teams in college football. I don't think that they are good enough to win 3 straight games, especially those top, that big of matchups. So give me Ohio State to win the whole thing.
Yeah, our brackets look pretty similar. I've kind of changed mine since my original prediction, but first round, I'm going to go Texas over Clemson, Ohio State to beat Tennessee, Penn State over SMU, and then Notre Dame to beat Indiana. In the second round, like, it just looks chalky, and I think that's because, like, you look at March Madness, it's always got some crazy upsets in it, and maybe we'll see one here. There's a lot more opportunities for upsets in March Madness, and I think there's a little bit more variation in basketball, especially in a one-game scenario where a team can just shoot like 10% from three, or a team can shoot 50% from the free throw line. Whatever the case may be, some really good game plan might mess a team up or something like that, or change the way that they have to play. And now, granted, that can be true in football, but at some point, my offensive linemen and your defensive linemen are going to hit each other every play, and I'm stronger on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That has a much lower variation in my opinion, which is why I expect it to be kind of chalky. I've got Texas over ASU. I thought about this one for a while. I'm not a big Texas believer. The only time I believed in Texas was for about the first quarter and a half against Georgia in the SEC title game. And after that, I was like, never mind. I, once again, don't really believe in them. Problem is, Arizona State's leading wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, he is questionable for that game. If he plays, it wouldn't shock me if Arizona State won that game. As it is, give me Texas. I've got Oregon winning against Ohio State. They'll be in the Rose Bowl. I think the crowd will favor Oregon a little bit. I do expect them to win that game, and I love Oregon, so there's no way I'm picking Ohio State to beat them. Ew. I've got Penn State beating Boise State. Like you said, group of five team, just not going to be the same caliber of athletes. Penn State should be able to, stop them at the line of scrimmage. I think Ashton Genty is going to have to go for like 200 to 250 to win that game. I don't see it happening. And then Georgia Notre Dame. I want to pick Georgia to lose this game. I really do. I don't believe in their backup quarterback. Problem is every time I say Georgia's not going to win a game, they go ahead and go win it. So give me Georgia. Semifinals. Then I got, okay, Oregon, Texas. Yeah, so quarterfinals. Oregon, Texas. I like Oregon to win that game. Then I got Penn State and Georgia. And once again, I want to pick Georgia to lose. I really do. I wish I could. But we've seen James Franklin in big games, and we've seen Kirby Smart in big games. Who do I trust to go take care of business? It's Kirby Smart, and it's Georgia. And so it ends up being super chalky. I've got number 1 Oregon and number 2 Georgia playing in the national title game. Give me Oregon. Give me Oregon to go get it done. I think having that backup quarterback in there is finally gonna be enough to throw Georgia off. I think Georgia's secondary concerns that have shown up over the course of the season every so often, I think Oregon's going to be able to exploit that. A much more veteran quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I think Oregon's going to go ahead. It is in Georgia, but I expect Oregon to go win the national title in Atlanta January 20th. Give me the Ducks, baby.
What a homer pick right there. Love to see it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Now, Oregon, we talked about it before, kind of had one of the worst draws in the tournament. Does playing the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, and then Texas, and then potentially Georgia, does that scare you at all? Like, potentially Oregon has the toughest path to win the Natty, even though, barring, some first-round teams, just given that Oregon has a bye. But that three-game stretch is going to be absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it is going to be a really tough 3-game stretch. The thing to me is I think those 3 teams haven't shown they've shown a lack of, not Ohio State, but Ohio State even against Michigan, they've all shown a lack of eliteness where we've seen Oregon be the most consistent team in the country. So if there is a team that I'm going to go pick to win 3 straight games against the best competition that college football has to offer, it's going to be the team that had an undefeated season. It's going to be, and that's Oregon. Texas, we've seen inconsistency against Georgia. Ohio State, like I said, just lost to Michigan. Ohio State is actually the game on that schedule that scares me the most.
Yeah,
Ohio State has shown they've shown an ability to beat top 5 teams. They've done it twice. They only lost to Oregon by 1, kind of a fluky end-of-game scenario. If Dan Lanning doesn't pull the rabbit out of his hat with a 12-man defensive set, maybe it goes a little bit differently.
That's what Will Howard just needed to get down. And they could kick a
Yeah.
field goal. But still, I see what you mean there. I think Ohio State is definitely the scariest team that Oregon does not want to see play. They kind of played a fantastic game. No matter what, any team Oregon plays, it's going to be a close game. But if you're an Oregon fan and one team is going to scare you heading forward, I think it's definitely Ohio State. Any other teams that you could kind of see, making the dark horse run potentially? Any of these, Arizona State, Boise State, they each have a bye, but we gave them pretty much no chance to win. And we also went chalk on all the first round games. Are there any teams, uh, back half of the playoff seeds that you think might have a chance?
The back half, no. If there's one team that I think can make a dark horse run, it's going to be Notre Dame. They get if you do get a weak Georgia team in that second round, you can capitalize off that, and then you get Penn State, SMU, Boise State, anywhere out of there. I think that could be a pretty just good path to end up getting to the national title game. And then you get one game, you're a top 8 team in the country, and you get one game to go win the Natty. Man, I mean that's all you can really ask for. So they definitely have a chance to go ahead and win that game, no matter who comes out of the top side of that bracket. So Notre Dame's definitely a team that stands out to me for the same reasons. I think you could make a solid argument for Penn State, especially if they get to play Notre Dame as opposed to Georgia. I think they'd have a better shot making it there. But those two teams are the teams that stick out to me as maybe teams people don't think can make the national title, but actually have a good shot to make it out of the bottom of that bracket.
Yeah. Yeah, that bottom half of the bracket there, I really only see 3 teams, it being Georgia, Notre Dame, and Penn State. And you could really tell me any team. I lean Georgia just because I trust, Kirby Smart. But man, they've been inconsistent. You just don't know what Georgia you're going to get on any given, Saturday. So I do agree. It's between one of those 3 teams. The top half of the bracket, man, there's a lot more variation there. I like Oregon. I like Ohio State. I don't mind Texas. I know they have a weaker schedule, but I don't mind that they had a weaker schedule. I still view that as a very talented team. Given how good that defense is, I like their poll or their draw, right? Like you got Clemson and then Arizona State in the second round. That's not too bad of a draw. So I think it's between those 3 teams in that top half: Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas.
Yeah, I'm gonna pitch this to you, man. If you see one team making a Cinderella run, like nobody expects it, like below that Notre Dame Penn State tier, I'm talking like a Boise State and Arizona State and SMU, Clemson. Like out of those 4 teams, or even in Indiana, like those 5 teams, who do you think's really got a shot to make a run at it?
I kind of want to go Clemson, which is kind of crazy to say, just given that they're the last seed in the bracket. But we talked about it. We talked about it in the preview. Cade Klubnik is potentially the better quarterback against Texas. If they can get past Texas, you just have Arizona State, the next round at a neutral site. And I mean, that third round, I don't know how to really make an argument for that one.
Yeah, that's where it gets tough.
That's where it gets really tough. But if I had to pick one, I really don't like SMU. Tennessee, I just don't view Tennessee getting past Ohio State and Oregon. So honestly, of any of those, last 4 seeds, I think I like Clemson because they just have the path. I think the easiest path into the quarterfinals, essentially. The only other team I could potentially see is Indiana. Indiana, still kind of a mystery, just playing just the absolute bottom end of, the Big Ten. Kind of ridiculous how weak of a schedule that they had. But they've been damn good, and I've never been super high on Notre Dame. Georgia's inconsistent, and Boise State, Penn State, SMU isn't too bad of a quarterfinal there. So I tend to lean Clemson just because I trust, just the pedigree of Dabo Swinney a little bit more. So yeah, if I had to pick any of the teams, last 4 seasons to make a Cinderella run, I'd probably go Clemson.
Yep, I like that pick, man. As a college football fan, I'm so excited. I know I'm picking it chalky, and there's reasons I'm picking it chalky, but I would love to see an upset or 2 in the first round. Like, come on, SMU, go make it happen, man. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. Just make it interesting. Although I don't really want to see SMU Georgia down the line, but SMU Boise State in the second round of the playoff. Imagine if that's something that's happening, which is something you would have never envisioned going into the season. It's been a great season, and it's going to continue to be here for for about this next month. So super excited, man. Any other college football notes you got moving forward?
I don't think so, man. I'm just looking forward to it. It's finally time to get to some playoff games here.
Yep, let's do it. We're not gonna give you guys any bowl game previews with the change in college football where you have a lot of guys opting out and stuff like that. It's kind of tough to see what's going on in bowl games, and they just don't matter as much as they used to. Maybe we'll get out like an Instagram graphic or something of our favorite bets, but no podcast on bowl games. So for college football, we'll be back next week to break down what happened in the first round of the playoffs and to preview the next 4 games in that second round. So we appreciate y'all listening, and go make some money this weekend.